hop into some 3-minute. Okay, and we get a titled player straight away. Fantastic. So kot60 from the USA, 2181. Well, this should be a very evenly matched game. So it's a good thing that I'm gonna try and stick a little bit closer to my opening repertoire, but then go very, very aggressive off the back of that, and maybe try and sacrifice material when I get a chance. Okay, looks like my opponent's going for some kind of Noah's Ark trap here, but I'm not going to fall for that. I'm going to play this as a pawn sack. Bishop to e6. Not really sure about that move. What am I supposed to do here? Okay, let's just play bishop g5. Queen d7. Now, what can we do here? Maybe knight d5. And my idea here is that I'm trying to get him to take on d5 so I can recapture and opening up the e file. For example, a big disaster for him would be knight takes d5, e takes d5, bishop f5, rook e1 check. And he would be forced to lose at least a piece in that position. Probably far more than that. So that's why he's taken instead with the bishop, and then followed up with h6. Wouldn't completely surprise me if he now played g5 to hit the bishop, try and buy time for bishop g7. But then I have the interesting intermezzo, queen d4, hitting the rook on g8 and preventing the bishop coming to g7. So now he's almost forced to play rook g8 here, bishop g3. And then, okay, fine, he can play bishop to g7 here, but where's he going to put his king? That is the problem. That's the question I would be asking myself if I was playing black here. Because it's not safe in the centre, and I am fairly certain he doesn't want a castle queenside. So about the best that he can manage is king to f8, but that, to say that's far from ideal is something of an understatement, but it is the best that he can do. But he does have this extra pawn, so I suppose there are some people out there that would go, well, it's an extra pawn, white doesn't have anything in particular here, what are we worried about? And to you I say, well, you might be right, but I would take white any day of the week here, and especially on a hack attack day. Knight f5, so he's attempting to get rid of one of my two bishops. That's slightly annoying, I suppose. But I'm going to say, if he takes this bishop on g3, normally h takes would be the best move. Taking towards the centre is an excellent rule of thumb during the middle game. But here, I won't be able to resist taking back with the f-pawn, because look at that juicy open f-file that we'll get if I can recapture with the f-pawn. So he plays rook b8 instead. Let me see. How do I do something aggressive here? Rook c6 looks sensible, but he might go rook b6. Okay, I don't think I'm too worried about that. I'm happy to swap off a pair of rooks, because then I can bring a second rook to c1 and into c6. And in the meantime, that rook on g8 is particularly badly placed. So he does grab another pawn here. Now I could grab a pawn on a6, but I've got bigger fish to fry. So we're going to go queen c2. Now knight d4, I grab two pieces for the rook with queen b2. And if he moves bishop back to f6 or g7, then rook takes c7. Looks very painful. Especially as I've just noticed that the knight on f5 is going to be on pre. Okay, he can play queen d8 here. That must be his only move. So that my rook on c7 is on pre if I take the knight on f5. And indeed, he does find this move. But, I mean, his position is holding together by the thinnest of threads. So we take on e5, and then I have this idea of playing d6, which I can't resist, hitting f7. Maybe he recaptures with the knight, and I go rook d1 here. I mean, what am I down? I'm still only 2 pawns down. It's worth paying attention to the clock here. Both sides have not an awful lot of time, but ooh, rook takes f7, knight takes Okay, that's going to win. Rook takes f7, knight takes, rook takes d8, rook takes d8, queen takes g6, and the bishop covers d1. That's going to be game over. Okay, you can go king... No, king g7 doesn't help. Rook takes there, queen takes there. And that's a simple queen versus rook. No problems on the back rank. No reason not to snaffle 1 or 2 extra pawns here. Just got to make sure I don't throw away this game in time trouble. But 20 seconds should be absolutely plenty of time at this stage. Just no reason to let this become complicated. Give a little check. He's starting to be a little bit pesky with his pieces here. But really... Oh, that was a good move. I'm starting to struggle this a little bit. Okay, I want to give up the queen for the pieces. Okay, he's stopping me doing that. Get ready to play bishop takes e4. Oh, I can play this. Okay. How's this game become so complicated? Right, hopefully this is a winning king and pawn ending, guys. Yeah, it is. This is what I could do with that 2 seconds increment. Will 3.3 seconds be enough? I don't know. Gonna attempt to bring my king closer. Oh, that was a good move. He took advantage of my pre-move there. .2 seconds. King in. Queen across. Oh, and I won on time. Well, that was unexpected. I'll admit to not really paying attention to my opponent's time, but that became a lot closer than it should have done. Now, I know you guys think I'm probably dragging my feet in these endings for dramatic tension, but no, you probably don't think that. You probably think I'm just moving ridiculously slowly because it happens every week. So, I don't have much else to say other than, how does this opening work again? Okay, g6 is a move. I'm trying to find an interesting line against the c3 Sicilian. I know a lot of people struggle with this because anti-Sicilians are a pain. There are a lot of people that have their own open Sicilians, which they're very willing to play, as I'm being attacked by a fly here, which is slightly frustrating. I assume that with winter fully in motion here in London, that flies would have all gone south for the winter, but apparently not. Knight goes into d6. We will carry on despite the distraction. But if I drop any pieces, that will be my new generic excuse. Yeah, that knight on d6 is rather annoying. So I'm going to have to create counterplays somehow. Or swap it off. But I'm going to play f5 because I can never resist an opportunity to weaken my king. For the compensation of some dubious pseudo activity. And unfortunately that isn't something that is confined to my games on Hack Attack. That is what I do in slow play. But on the plus side, it does lead to interesting chess. Okay, that it also means that his knight on d6 shouldn't become a permanent problem. Going to try queen h4 here with a cheap threat of bishop e5, maybe hitting the knight on d6 and mate on h2. Although he would be able to meet it with g3. That looks kind of interesting. But okay, he plays g3 to preempt any of that kind of nonsense. I'm going to put the queen on h3 because it looks aggressive. And that's about it, really. How do I continue to play moves that look aggressive? Can I go b5 and maybe sacrifice a pawn? It just looks bad, to be honest, so we're going to go b6. For once, I've picked a relatively sensible move, and I'm paying with it for the loss of a couple of pawns. This doesn't seem to be going so well. Is it too early for me to engage full-on swindle mode? Probably, but we're not far off that point. He's going to take on e6, probably with the bishop, but also possibly with the queen. Yeah, he does play bishop takes. Is his queen short of squares? Rook d8, queen b7. Not short enough. And I am quite a bit behind on the clock. This isn't the greatest position to start swindling from. So we just have to play some moves. You can't swindle if you don't have any time left on the clock. Or even if you do, sometimes it's just a waste. So we're going to play moves, and while we're only pawns down, we're going to claim that that everything is basically fine. Everything is decidedly not awesome, but it's fine. Oh, knight h4 is a cheap threat if I don't mind losing the queen on h3. But he's preempted even that kind of suicidal threat. Yeah. He has choices of ways of winning this position. I quite like rook takes e5, rook takes e5, queen d4 here, followed by knight c4. And almost as though he heard me, he has played this exact line. And that, I believe, is that. Oh, he's considering whether or not to play rook e1 instead of knight c4. But it makes no difference here that I can see. Is there any possible way to continue on with this game? See, rook takes e1 mate would be an incredibly strong move were it not for the pin. So, I mean, I'll go queen g4 and see if he plays queen takes g4, but I think he'll play rook takes e5 and I'll hit the resign button. Okay. Prediction holds true, which means that we get to go into a decider. Isn't that exciting for game number 1? And we can start off with 1f4 in this deciding match. And maybe we can turn this into a kind of big clamp against the Sicilian. Let us see. Knight to f3. I kind of wanted to play an early e4, but he's making it awkward for me to do that. Okay, let's play it here and see how it works out. Well, where am I going to develop this bishop? I mean, I have e2, c4 and b5. e2 is too passive. I think if he goes g6, I'll put it on c4. And if he puts it on e6, goes e6, I'll play bishop b5. And if he goes e5, then I mean bishop c4, and it's like a king's gambit. And no one can resist a pseudo king's gambit. Just want to sacrifice a pawn, and it's well known that f7 is black's most vulnerable square until he's castled. So maybe we can get some play against that point here. So knight g5 is kind of interesting, but he's got knight e5. So we're just going to castle and keep an eye on that square. Bishop comes to d6. Now, does e5 get us anywhere? Well, maybe, but probably not. I'm not completely convinced by my compensation here, which isn't good. Let us try bishop b3 and knight c4. Yeah, I'm decidedly unsure what I'm doing here. But possibly my opponent also has no idea what I'm doing, in which case that's win-win. Or at least, yeah, I'm not certain it's win-win. Can he go b5 here? Okay, well he hasn't, so we can stop worrying about that. That's good news. He's just trying to remove this bishop, I suspect. But if I can somehow stay ahead on development and maybe get these bishops into the game, then I have a reasonable chance here. Okay, I'm willing to give up the bishop pair in order to have this f-file. Doesn't sound like a terrible trade to me. Excuse me. And then queen f2. ostensibly it puts a bit of pressure on this pawn on d4, but I'm more interested in ramping up the pressure on f7, and that's why I think my opponent's last move is quite clever. Can I go rook takes d4, queen e7 and move the knight? Well, then there's bishop b6. I don't like the way this is going. It's not a disaster, but this has the look of heading for a very, very equal middle game with not as many minor pieces on as I would like. And in fact, my opponent seems interested in the queens coming off as well. If I had to guess, he's going to take on b3 and possibly follow up with a rook going to d8. If that's plausible. I do have a queenside pawn majority. That's a good thing. So, going to try and turn that into a pass pawn. Only a tiny bit behind on the clock. But there's no reason at all for me to have any kind of advantage here. What I want is to have some very active rooks. So let's see how this goes. Now, if I was my opponent, I would play takes followed by rook f b8. Rook a b8 seems odd here. He offers me a draw. I say, no thank you for the moment. But rook c8 is a pretty good move. Yeah, I don't see this going too well. But we're gonna play it on for a little bit. I've seen some people play endings pretty badly. And my aim here is to bring my king over to c3 and try and push the b pawn and make it unpleasant for him. I mean, this is definitely a draw, but his king is cut off from my b pawn, so he has to be careful. It's possible that I'm risking a loss in this kind of ending, but I'm doing it in the name of entertainment. Nice little idea here, as I can force the king one square further away, as again the fly comes back for a second pass. Does look like I'm going to be able to force him to give up his rook for the pawn, but am I going to have enough pawns left over on the king's side? Okay, so here, and then takes off. And maybe I've got even this idea of now rook d8 is a potential threat. Rook here. And check. And then rook h7. Rook h7 would not be a good move. Why am I taking so much time over this? Okay, let's just play this. Don't know why I didn't do that the move before. I have a nasty feeling that I might have just thrown this away. Okay, it's a draw. Oh, I was going to win on time. That's nice. I'm not interested in flagging people. Not in a 3-minute game when it's dead drawn like this. I mean, just to show you why it's a draw here, I can check and go behind here if I want to, but there's never any time to take this pawn off. Let's just see what would have happened if I'd gone back. If I'd played b8 the move before. So that's b8 here, rook takes b8, king takes b8, f4, rook h3, f3, rook takes pawn, king h2, rook f7, f2, rook here, and I win, because now I can just sacrifice the rook and play h4. Okay.